What's up, guys? Barbarian or Bust here today, and we have the Whirlwind Spin to Win. This is my all-time favorite from D3, and now it is viable in Diablo 4. We're gonna do Pit 100. Okay, this build is super fun. You literally just spin. The only thing I don't like about my build right now is I'm a little low on actual movement speed. Other than that, this build is really fun, really awesome. We have pretty much permanent uptime on our berserking, which allows us to absolutely bleed all the enemies. I do have the Grandfather, and I do have Shaco, and the Rage of Haragath. The Rage of Haragath is really good for this. You don't need the Grandfather, but it definitely helps. But we're just like slicing through everything. And the only thing that sucks is my movement speed is low. Other than that, this is a really fun build. And the movement speed is just my problem. If I had more movement speed, it'd be a lot better. Yeah, it just slices through everything. You don't even need to use Wrath of the Berserker if you don't want to. Look at that. Oh man, this is good. Just keep going. Just keep spinning. We did add Dust Devils, but our main source is our bleed damage. Look at that. Just crushes everything. It's really nice that this is viable again. The only disappointing part is the actual Whirlwind itself doesn't really do much damage. That part is kind of crappy, but it still works, so it's still good. And our cooldowns are reset pretty much all the time. Oh man. I don't know if I like this better than Bleed though. It's definitely faster than Bleed. Bleed's still my favorite though. Let me just finish these guys off. There we go. Okay. So when you do this build, you want to tap Whirlwind and not hold it down. That is 100% important. And I guess the biggest thing about the boss is I always need to watch out for boss mechanics, because sometimes you don't always see them. Other than that, amazing. Alright, let's walk around, don't get hit by Lilith. Almost done. Watch out for that. Don't get hit by those. And dead. Look at that. And that is Spin to Win. Alright, now that was an easy level 100 pit. That was absolutely awesome. Let's go over the build. So in the helmet, we do have the Harlequin crest, and if you don't have this, I would suggest use the Tusk Helm. We gain berserking all the time. This will proc all the time. You'll always have more damage and more cooldown and more fury per second. Second, Rage of Hergath. This chess piece is absolutely amazing. Make sure you get the highest lucky hit chance that you can get on this piece. All the other stats we don't really care about. We want to get close to that 40% as possible. If you don't have this, farm for it because it's too good. And in the gloves, we take Fierce Winds and we have Strength. Very important to take Critical Strike chance and Lucky Hit chance. Those two are very important. There wasn't too many tempers to put on here besides Critical Strike damage. So you have to make a rogue for your Critical Strike damage. Get as much as that as possible. And then for the utility, the best thing I could think of was Tough as Nails, which also works well with your Hergath. We did try with Gohr's, and it gives you ranks to Whirlwind, which is great. It does have lucky hit chance, doesn't have critical strike chance, and because it's dealing more base damage, it's really not that good. I mean, the animation looks really cool, but it doesn't really work. And then we have Undying in the pants, and you need to at least have one roll with armor. So I put my armor roll here, and ranks to concussion are not needed. You would want more Tough as Nails, but you definitely want the Imposing Presence. That is always important. And if you're low on resistances, then go max life, resistance, and then armor. And for the boots, we take Relentless Berserkers. Now this is one of 4 ways we have berserking in the build. This is why you want to have a high lucky hit chance for this and for the Rage of Hergath. I wanted one roll with fury per second, and you want a resistance here, and instead of strength you could put health, a resistance, or a second movement speed. You want another roll to Tough as Nails. And for the mace, we have Berserker Ripping. Berserk Ripping is very important to put on the two-hander, and it is very important that we are berserking all the time because we have the 60% increased damage, and when you take the Gushing Wounds, this is why we deal so much bleed damage. And on here for stats, you want Strength, Max Life. You can either take Vulnerable damage or Critical Strike damage. And for tempering slots, you want Critical Strike damage. And in my opinion, you want 1 to Whirlwind size. And then for the other, if you don't have the Grandfather, I would do Critical Strike chance again, but also take something for your Dust Devils. I would do Dust Devil size because of the Fierce Winds. And then on this one-hander here, we have the Dust Devil aspect, or Whirlwind leaves behind Dust Devils. This is, again, Dust Devils and Bleed. This works amazing. And ideally, you want Critical Strike, Max Life, and Strength. But I didn't have a lot of weapons on hand, so this one just has max damage, and so does this one. And then for tempering spots, make the Rogue, Critical Strike damage, and I have points into Pressure Point. So the one downfall with this build is we don't have a lot of ways to make the enemies vulnerable. I use the Bleed Tempers to get as many points into Pressure Point as possible. And on our next weapon, we have the Elements aspect, and you want Strength, Max Life, and Critical Strike damage with a temper of Critical Strike damage. And the second temper, instead of being Whirlwind size, you want Dust Devil size. And if you get casted, use Dust Devils twice, that's okay as well. But you really only need 1 to Whirlwind size. And in the two-hander, we have the Grandfather. I finally got an Uber drop from Duriel. This one was crafted with my 4 sparks, and this weapon is awesome. Our critical strike damage is 4,370%. Absolutely amazing. If you use another weapon with your rogue tempering, you still have a decent lucky hit chance. That is still absolutely amazing. But let's be honest, you can't beat the Grandfather. Like that's just a huge number. So this is best in slot. If you don't have this, use a two-handed sword, even though this is a polearm, but this has the stats you want. It has strength, max life, vulnerable or crit damage with crit strike damage tempering, and you would want one two-hander to have whirlwind size and the other one dust devil size. And for the rings, we take the bold chieftain, and here you also want critical strike chance and lucky hit chance. The strength, if you need health, put health on it, strength, or put a resistance if you need them capped. And for your temperings, you want damage with berserking and warcry cooldown. With the Rage of Hergath, in theory, you don't need the warcry cooldown. Really, this takes care of all your cooldowns, but you can literally spam warcry every 3 to 5 seconds. And our second ring is the aspect of Voracious Rage. Critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, both really important. Strength, max life, or a resistance if needed. And you want damage to berserking. And you want one ring to have Warcry, and the next one to have resource generation. With resource generation here, with fury per second, and with resource generation here, we have no worries about resource. If you don't have Harlequin Crest, I would take 2 with resource generation, and on your amulet, just put Warcry cooldown. And with our amulet, this amulet is absolutely amazing. With critical strike chance, heavy-handed, and slaying strike. This is too good. But unfortunately, the Temper's mobility cooldown sucks. I was trying to get movement speed. I like to get movement speed on my boots, and I like to get movement speed on my amulet. Unfortunately, I got mobility cooldown reduction, which is absolutely awful. Other than this is an absolutely amazing amulet. I love putting the Iron Warrior aspect on my amulet because it gives us the most damage reduction. And for expertise, we do two-handed axe. And for the skills, you use 2 points in Lunging Strike, which we will not use on our bar. Then you only take 3 points into Whirlwind. And only 3 because Whirlwind doesn't do a lot of damage. It's the bleeding and the Dust Devils that are doing all the damage. 3 points into Pressure Point. 3 points into Imposing Presence. 3 points into Martial Vigor. 3 points into Rallying Cry for Tactical Rallying Cry. 3 points into Iron Skin for Tactical Iron Skin. We actually take 0 points into Tough as Nails, but this still procs because we have points in it, even though there's nothing going to it. 3 points into Challenging Shout for Tactical Challenging Shout. 3 points into Swiftness. 3 points into Warcry for Power Warcry. 3 points into Booming Voice. 3 points into Guttural Yell. 3 points into Aggressive Resistance. 3 points to Pit Fighter. 3 points to Slaying Strike. I do have 1 point in Hamstring to get 1 point to Cut to the Bone, but you could swap that out. You could either take out Cut to the Bone and put an extra point in Prolific Fury, or vice versa, take out the 1 point in Prolific Fury to get 1 more point in Cut to the Bone. 1 point in Thick Skin to get 3 points of Counteroffensive, 3 points in Heavy Handed. These are just from our other pants that are not needed for the build. And we take 3 points into Wrath of the Berserker for Supreme Wrath of the Berserker. And our passive is Gushing Wounds, and that's why our bleed does so much damage. So for this build, it's very important that A, you have a two-handed sword, and that your Whirlwind is on your two-handed slashing weapon. Now the Paragon board, you start off with Exploit, and for the Carnage board, we take Might. Then I path to the left into Warbringer, and I take Wrath, and make sure that you take these points here for Fury on Kill. That helps keeps our Fury up all the time. And then I path down into Blood Rage with Twister, and then from Carnage I path over to the right, and I take Territorial and the Hemorrhage board, and our final board is Decimator, and we take Ire. I'm really glad that Spin to Win is back, and I highly suggest you give this build a try. And if you don't have these 2 uniques for this build, make sure you make a two-handed sword and you grab the Tusk Helm. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.